So welcome to the Agile Strategy Meetup group. My name is Morten Elvang, and today we have Deema visiting. Deema, I'm not even sure where you're calling in from, but I know it's the US time zone.
I'm in the state of Texas, in the
US.
The
state of Texas.
Central.
So
yeah.
Really super that you can join us and share your perspective on strategy, and knowing that your perspective is a bit different than potentially other speakers, still asking the same two questions: how you see that field evolving from your perspective, and any advice for people who might be interested in getting more influence in that area. And we just had a chance to catch up before we started the official part. So you're going to take a little bit more time and hope to make us a bit interactive, but about 40 minutes for the presentation, and then we open up for conversation. Is that okay?
That sounds great. Is it okay with everybody else? Excellent. Well,
please.
I did prepare. I wanted to tell actually a personal storyline. Right, I've dropped in and listened to a few of the prior meetups and heard some amazing thoughts starting to come together. And I thought my contribution could be a challenge that I had to face in the portfolio plus strategy roles, and what I was able to do about it. But I did inject some questions during this presentation because I'd actually like to get your opinions. Who's to say that my context, my situation, how I ended up solving things is the absolute right way? I would not say that. So it's always the collective intelligence of everyone. And I've seen you guys on prior meetups, so I'd love to actually hear your insights. Deal? Excellent. All right. So my name is Deema Dajani. I actually just formed a business with a few colleagues of ours, and we're calling it Outcomes 360. My background is very deep in the Agile world. I actually started being an Agilist, so not advising on it, but actually working in an Agile way, working in 2001. So that makes me old. And my most recent stint, I was an employee of Scaled Agile. I am a SAFe fellow, so I do have that credential, but I also am more of a practical professional person. So I was in product in multiple companies as well as in portfolio and portfolio strategy. And I want to bring that perspective in. So thank you for being here today. And hopefully I learned from you as much as you learned from this storyline. So what I was started to mention is, yes, I have been an advisor, a consultant, a transformation consultant for many, many years across different industries. However, I was never strictly a consultant all the time. I keep going back and forth from in business roles, helping develop, grow, build the business, build the product strategy, and then back into advising. So my latest stint really has been in the role of a strategy leader, portfolio strategy leader. So it's more on the portfolio side. And it's really helped shift my perspective, even though I was part of the advisory on lean portfolio management and the contribution of that IP. But once you're in that role, it's far more nuanced. So I'm trying to bring that little bit of perspective to you. What this is today and what this is not. This is not going to be about strategy formulation. I'm not going to claim expertise in an area that I don't have. Now, I understand the formulated strategies, and of course, I have my MBA and all of that, but this is not my putting together an executive team and formulating a strategy, not my expertise, not today. What this is about is more about the portfolio side, which is the bridge between strategy and execution. This will also be a little bit less academic and more practical and most personal. So I will give my own experience story of a lesson. I'm going to start very broad, but then I'm going to narrow it down. We can't solve everything. So I'm going to narrow it down to one problem. And believe me, there were many, many challenges, but one problem. And what I ended up doing with two separate solutions that work together to solve that problem. I did not prepare for you all the factors and all the possible solutions. I want to keep it narrow so that we can hopefully walk away with a couple of practical ideas that you guys can implement immediately with either your own organization or your client. And then one personal challenge I'm doing to myself, and you guys can call me out on it, I'm going to avoid the jargon as much as possible, because my first lesson in actually stepping into leadership, working with boards, with execs, is that the jargon we've developed over the years, it does not fly over well with leadership teams. You need to make it leader-friendly business language. So that's my challenge. You may hear me describe some things and say, oh, but that's XYZ. I'm purposely not using the jargon. All right. So looking into the situation, the past, I had been in product manager, at a point of inflection in that organization. I was very deeply steeped into the discovery part, the customer research, the market research, competitive research, not only researching, but actually designing and promoting the product roadmap to support what we're actually sensing. So it was very much market sensing and customer specific sensing. We foresaw an eventual market shift in the market we were in, that we knew potentially in the future this will impact our core business. We did have a product strategy, and actually that product strategy was aligned with the business strategy for the purpose of achieving the overall business goals, but at the same time help set us up for that future state, to help us survive and maybe even thrive with the market shift that we're sensing. We even started to deliver on that product strategy. It was multi-year, hardly adaptive in terms of the details, but the overall shift was known, and we kind of knew how we want to tackle it. The change was, as we're going through all of that market shift that we had anticipated came much sooner than expected. We were thinking years in the future, and it became today. This was coupled with some macroeconomic conditions that added to the uncertainty, an anxious board of directors, new leadership. I mean, if you want to name all the things that could complicate a situation, that all came together. The resulting situation in that particular story was the level of anxiety about what was transpiring caused some radical dismantling of products and that product strategy, increased near-term focus, increased focus on ROI. Everything became justify the ROI. In a way, almost the measurements used became a way to, I like the term, I want to say weaponize, or to drive drastic decisions, to drive certain drastic decisions. So that was the situation, that was the context that I had in my story. So I want to fast forward in time, and now in hindsight, I was able to formulate some thoughts, and also during that process, I was able to come up with a couple of solutions. So bear with me as I start broad now to explain some of the thoughts that were coming to the forefront. So from a leader's perspective, what is it that they're looking at? Well, we have the strategy formulated or formulating. We have that bucket where you have a business strategy. It somehow gets broken down, articulated, some form of Hoshin Connery, goals, objectives, tactics, whatever terminology you use. It's all right. It's all good. When that part is missing, shaky, or misaligned, the general sense is that we're not agile enough. We are slow to sense the shifts in the market and technology. Then that business strategy, hopefully when things are good, it's translated. Each of your departments, each of your groups is going to translate that overall strategy into their functional or operational or departmental strategy. So it's very common for a company to have a go-to-market strategy, which tells you your sales teams, structures, incentives, ideal customer profile, markets to target. Your CPO with the product team is going to have a product strategy to address, financial strategy, how to finance it, and acquisitions and whatnot, and then org strategy to support it. There are other strategies. I just needed a quick visual here, but you could have your architectural strategy, etc. But that's the translation ultimately of the business strategy. And the misalignment here could be that those strategies are not supporting your business strategy, but that's a less likely situation. More likely than not, each of them did their best to translate the business strategy. However, amongst themselves, these strategies are not supporting each other. I personally faced the situation where our product strategy actually was incongruent with our go-to-market strategy, our marketing, branding, sales strategy. The two were incongruent and not supporting each other. So it could happen, right? And the end result, the perception, we're not agile enough. We don't have this strategy agility. All of these kind of flow into the execution cycle, which I have to say, the agile communities, DevOps communities, lean software development, you name it, have done a fantastic job in optimizing that circle of execution. But also there, some breakdowns could cause misalignment with the strategy between what's executed and slow delivery. So we can take the first two buckets, the formulation and translation of your strategy as strategy agility, my personal view. You have delivery agility, which really we've optimized, but we really have seen opportunities where the two are not connecting. And that's where I conjecture that portfolio agility is there as the bridge to bring the two together. From a leader's perspective, what's portfolio agility? I have a strategy for my portfolio in terms of aligning to the overall corporate strategy, a decision-making framework, allocations, balances. I deal with investment decisions on a daily basis. It's including evaluating certain investments and prospects, prioritization, sequencing, two different things, the funding model and how I approach that, the pivot or persevere adjustments. This whole bucket of investment decisions, to me, is probably the indicator of how much strategy agility we have, or portfolio agility, sorry, because it depends on the time span of how often we're reviewing this. So if this is more on a continuous basis or a regularly occurring basis, it skews more agile versus annual budget cycle, then it's a little bit less agile. And then overall governance, we're all fiduciaries, or the leaders are. So the governance piece in terms of visibility to execution, performance evaluation of those products, solutions, portfolios, and overall compliance. Okay, portfolio agility, great, got it. We have a domain. Where does it break down? So I want you to hear this conversation. It's a fictional conversation, but not so fictional, because I've seen it in multiple companies, not just in my story, but in also some of the customers that I've advised. So you have something from the leaders, the board, the investors, whatever you want to call it, basically saying, look, we're not achieving our strategy. Just look at the financial results. We're not hitting those numbers and markets and behaviors that we're expecting. And then we get from the execution side a very valid answer, but we're delivering faster than ever. Just look at our feature cycle time. Our deployments are much more frequent than before. Our quality metrics are through the roof, but we're still not making our targets. We have OKRs that help indicate, and those indicators are just not trending in that direction. Response. But we're prioritizing what our customers need. Look at our customer user ratings. Look at our customer quotes. Okay, how do we reconcile the two? Perhaps the wrong items were prioritized? What was your ROI? And that was my story, where it became an overabundance of ROI focus and business cases. What's your initial reaction to this? How would you describe what's happening here? Feel free. It's almost we're speaking two different languages.
I think it's a misalignment between the strategy and the execution.
Yes, that's exactly it. And neither part is evil, neither part is wrong. They're both correct. But at the end of the day, there is something where we're not speaking the same. Now, the end result of what's your ROI and making that the focal point for product and investment decisions, that starts to make me a little nervous. Well, will ROI solve this disconnect? How do we actually finance innovation and finance growth? And credit to my colleague Joe Valone for coming up with financing innovation. So the first thing I did in both at this company and others is let's clarify all the different products and solutions that we have in our portfolio. They're not all created equal, and they should not all be treated the same. We have current solutions. These are our mature solutions that basically support our core business. Most of our customers are using the current solutions. Most of our revenue or value is coming from those current solutions. Why invest in those current solutions? Well, you have to defend your core business and you have to maintain, incrementally innovate, and obviously over time retire underperforming assets. The time to value expectation for these mature solutions is now. I put a number in here, less than 12 months, but guess what? It's going to vary. That's just a demonstrative example. Then we have our emerging solutions. These represent a new business we're trying to get into. They are used by a subset of our customers, not all of our customers yet. And if you look at the 80-20 rule, they're not 80% of your revenue or value. They're the lower one. Why do you want to invest in emerging solutions? One reason: drive high growth in your portfolio. This is the hopes that those will grow at some point and become one of your core solutions, and that business becomes a core business to you. Now, this is an important point. This is where our ROI question made me nervous. The time to value expectation of these emerging solutions is not going to be now. Why? Because you have to build momentum. Your customers need to build awareness. You need to build a customer base. You need to understand and nurture the needs. You need to nurture that new business. So it takes time to actually get to a point where the value or the revenue or whatever your definition of value is becomes material enough in your portfolio. You need to allow them time. And then exploratory ideas. This is not even a product or a solution. These are ideas that you're validating or invalidating so that you create options for your future. Those address potential market shifts and disruption and defend your position, not now, but in the future. So you're building now, not building, but you're investing now, exploring now. It has a high degree of uncertainty. So the time to value expectation is sometimes never. You actually, out of 10 of those ideas, hopefully you invalidate 9, and that's okay. That's how you treat them. Very different treatment. Imagine if you applied ROI to this, you would kill it, that investment. So, okay, we have the 3 types with 3 types of time to value expectations. The appropriate measures are going to be different. So financial measures are absolutely appropriate and should be done for your current solutions. ROI, IRR, various profitability measures, absolutely. Why? Because that's your core business. And then emerging solutions, you tackle them with leading indicators, and there's a lot about innovation accounting and those approaches. And then exploratory ideas, it's really validation tests, and you set your own criteria, validation criteria for each of them, and especially that it's not a product yet. So the prior 2 types of measures don't apply here as much. So what happens if we mix? What do you guys think? If we, for instance, take an emerging solution that just deployed last month and we start judging it by how's the ROI so far on this solution, what do you think would happen? Any ideas? You would eventually stifle innovation. You would stifle innovation. If you start shutting down solutions based on ROI when they're still in your emerging business and you haven't allowed the natural product life cycle to actually build momentum. If you do the opposite, if you actually ignore the financial measures for your current solutions, for your current products, and the investments, the recent investments or enhancements done to your current solutions, well, you actually, by ignoring your current solutions, you may start to become financially unviable, right? So intermixing these types of measurements with the solutions is not a good thing if you are using those measurements as a way to decide on which solutions continue, which solutions survive, which get discontinued, and which get invested in. Also, in terms of strategy, this is where I've seen the functional strategy misalignment start to come to play. Because your go-to-market strategy supported by your revenue organization, they may be saying, hey, what are you guys investing in? The current core business is declining, or this new stuff you've promised us, why aren't they reflecting significantly in our numbers yet? That's the misunderstanding that starts to happen. Again, speaking two different languages that we need to translate. So in this third part, other than knowing how to evaluate the correct type of solution on an ongoing basis to make decisions, is there another factor to figure out the investment level across these solutions? So we want to look at the portfolio as a whole system now, as a whole, not each individual investment. As Agilists, we did a fantastic job evaluating each investment on its own, each epic or feature proposal on its own. But now you need to take a step back and look holistically at the whole portfolio. By the way, this is from my personal stock investment, from my bank. I took a screenshot. I want to show you something, even though it looks like I'm shifting subjects, but I'm trying to give an analogy here. My husband and I, we happen to have two portfolios. For some reason, we kept them, these two portfolios, separate from each other. And it shows you their asset allocation, basically the investment mix. What insight can you get from these charts? What do you think? What can it tell you, even though you still don't know what are the individual stocks or mutual funds that are invested? Does it tell you anything? Can you get any value from just this view?
I think you, and tell me if I'm crossing boundaries, but I think you can make a qualified guess which is yours and which is your husband's.
No, we both have, we share both of these.
Okay, so it's a mutual thing.
Yes.
Okay.
But for some reason, we ended up keeping these two separate. They definitely have two different investment strategies. The one on the right is, although right now in the US market, don't even ask me how things are going, but the one on the right is a little bit more balanced for our eventual, retirement goals. It's a little bit more conservative. The one on the, sorry, that's the left. The opposite one, portfolio B, is very aggressive. Like there's hardly any bonds invested in there. So it's in, yeah.
Quite different risk profile.
So
Yeah.
exactly. So even though I don't know the specifics yet, but just having this view, understanding the mix or the distribution of my investments, it starts to tell me something, right? So same thing with those three types we talked about: current solutions, emerging solutions, and exploratory ideas. You need to have an investment mix target that enables your strategy. So you start from the business strategy we talked about, and we said to accomplish that, this is the type of mix we need in order to accomplish it. So set a target. So that's lesson one, is start to set a target for this mix. So you go online and you look up horizons of growth, and you're going to see that article plus many other pieces of literature online recommending a random, not really random, but 70-20-10 mix. 70% of your portfolio investment should go towards your current solutions, etc. I actually don't recommend that. I mean, just take that as a rule of example, not rule of thumb, and figure out what it means to your context, what is the right mix, what is the right distribution that makes sense for your company. So why even have a target? Why even view these things? What happens if you underinvest in your current solutions?
Well, you may end up with a lot of maintenance problems.
And you start to jeopardize your core business. You start to lose customers. Your main customers. You start to lose main customers, and that's very dangerous. What happens if you underinvest in your emerging solutions? You're risking your future. You're only investing in today. Like in my story, the market was shifting. So if the market's shifting, my core business is going to diminish over time anyway. Yeah. You need to be building today towards a future business that you can be in. And then exploratory ideas is also the same, just a slightly farther out time horizon, more focused on technology shifts and potential disruption. Do you guys think, what factors would you use to determine what your right mix should be for your product portfolio? If it's not 70-20-10, what should it be? What factors would you look at? You'd probably look at your industry, your context, competitive position,
right.
A lot of the
markets.
Yep. Great. There's other factors as well. And then when this target, is it set in stone? Or do we recalibrate it? You probably need to recalibrate.
You have to adapt it.
You have to adapt it over time. Why? Because as we learned from the prior meetups, nothing is certain, nothing is permanent, and things are moving very, very fast. So even this needs to be calibrated. But now, let's see, we have a win. We have a target. We're viewing our solutions in a certain way, and we have a target for them. Now let's start tracking the actuals, and let's start evaluating, are we over or under investing in aggregate. Don't look at a micro level within like a value stream or an art. Really look at the totality of the portfolio. In general, we needed this much in Horizon 3 or exploratory ideas versus emerging solutions versus the rest. And this will help you also combat the fact that without thinking through this mix, you could ultimately funnel all of your investment unknowingly just to current solutions or Horizon 1 or vice versa. I mean, I've seen both the extremes. So you need that balance. Another area where I see it break down is great. I have a strategy, a business strategy translated into my product strategy that is now manifested in my portfolio. And then the arts or the general delivery groups are planning on a regular basis and pulling next things to work on. So in this activity of execution cycle prioritizing, this is where it can break down. So how did I prioritize in different companies? You know what? Different ways. You can use some kind of importance ranking like Moscow, some form of effort impact scoring or matrix like weighted shortest job first. There's others. I've even experienced like criteria-based scoring where for that portfolio, for that company, they come up with certain criteria, start to weight them out and score based on that, etc. I'm sure you have other prioritization methods of how you prioritize the work. So my question to you is the following. I want you to take a moment to reflect on it. How well does your prioritization approach actually factor in balance in your portfolio or factor in that mix, that portfolio mix of how much should we do towards current versus future, etc.? What do you guys think? Any thoughts? All right. In my story, there wasn't a connection at all. There was strategy, approach, leadership aligned, and then the execution cycle was ranking things against each other. Because most of these, look at weighted shortest job first, or Moscow. It presumes everything you need, all the options you need to consider are in that list that you're ranking relative to each other. So you want to align prioritization with your portfolio balance. I use two very simple approaches. One is while we're doing the work or effort prioritization, you can do it in multiple rounds. Rank, look at the impact on the other balancing factors, and then, which is portfolio mix is one of them, and then re-rank again. Okay, go back and forth, kind of tweak and calibrate. Another one, which I haven't personally done, but I have observed somebody like Ian Spence who's done that. Wonderful, safe fellow. He has an approach where they rank within the target bands. So we want only up to X, whatever unit it is, of what we rank within current solutions versus emerging. So whatever approach you end up taking, just keep an eye on this prioritization linking back to the overall investment mix. Another thing I want to caution you, I gave you investment mix or horizons of growth as an example. There are other things you need to balance in your portfolio as well. You need to balance the asset allocation between new development versus maintenance, infrastructure, etc. So I narrowed it down, but you always want to balance multiple things and consider that within your prioritization. That's the break that happens, and that we need to rebridge that from strategy to execution. So here's my final slide with the lessons. Here's what I personally learned. When it comes to evaluating your product investments, either do we invest in this, or do we continue this product? Do we retire it, etc.? Have visibility to the type of solution it is. Is it emerging, current, or exploratory? Tag it in your system, whatever system you have for your Epics features. Evaluate the performance of each of those solutions with the appropriate measure for that type using time to value expectation. Again, it was the ROI to innovation disconnect. The other set of lessons I got was about balancing the portfolio to enable your strategy. That's a really important step to take. And I have to tell you, many organizations, including the ones I've worked in internally, did not effectively do that well. So start with setting a target mix that will enable your strategy, right? Start with a business strategy in mind and enable it. Then track against that mix. Don't just set it and forget it. Track it. Factor in the target mix in the work prioritization. Review the balance on a regular basis. I put it on a cadence. I ended up putting it in the quarterly cadence, strategic portfolio review cadence, to see how are we doing against that. Look at it with other factors, like how are we doing on our OKRs, the more strategic ones, as well as capacity allocation. So it's broader balance. And then any target needs to be recalibrated. It's not there forever. So find the opportunity either on your quarterly cadence, maybe that's too frequent, maybe less frequently, or triggered by events like we have new knowledge or strategy pivots or market shifts identified. Recalibrate that target mix to what will allow you to support the new adapted or optimized strategy. So these were my lessons learned. And I would love to connect with you to actually continue the conversation. So what do you think, Morten? Maybe open it up for some
yes,
questions.
absolutely. So first of all, thanks a lot, Deema, for sharing your view on, I would say, the latest evolution on portfolio management and how you see that. I wanted to still go back to a little bit the beginning of the questions and just ask, and you already shared a lot of this also as part of your personal story, but where are you seeing this going at the moment? Is there some movement in this connection between strategy, execution, portfolio management? What direction are the trends taking us according to what you see?
So the general picture of starting from a known business strategy, translating it into functional strategies, and then bridging through portfolio to execution, I think that cycle, that abstraction will continue. What I'm seeing is the timeline, the time span is much more condensed than ever, including in my own company in that story, as well as several client companies that I've interacted with. I started to hear the notion that whatever planning horizon they have, they've been breaking it. Yeah. So we had sort of like a quarterly type planning of the work over the past couple of years. I can't tell you how many of those planning increments were broken because of the severity and the pace of shifts and change happening in the market. I think we're at a point of inflection, especially with more organizations starting to embrace generative AI, not only in their operations, but productizing. Mm-hmm. And it's anybody's bet right now where things will land. So it's really, really hard to have a strategy bet. At this point, I think any of our strategies are a bet. We can't guarantee how they'll land, but to have a strategy bet and stick to it without actually learning what's happening in the market. Everything is changing and changing super fast. So yeah, I think the pace and the is much faster now, and we need to have this term strategy agility, which I've heard in prior meetups, much more emphasized.
Thank you. Let's open it up. There was a question for Tom. I'll just share that for everyone. It came to me, so maybe we can start with that. I can read it. So if your strategy objectives it's a little bit complex, so stay with me. Maybe you can pick it from the chat as well. So if your strategy objectives have 5 critical product qualities and 3 critical resource constraints, budget, deadline, etc., how would you articulate these so that you can decide if the strategy is right? I hope I got that correctly, Tom.
Tom, do you wanna add? Do you wanna say anything here?
No, that's fine. Five simultaneous critical qualities, 3 simultaneous resource restrictions. How do you articulate that so that you can make sense of it, find out whether you have a good enough strategy?
I think it's really hard on paper to read and determine whether any organization has a good enough strategy. I think the best we can do, and especially in the climate we're in today, is to have very solid market sensing and data to constantly help us evaluate our strategy, whatever it is, right, wrong, mediocre. I think even the best looking strategy on paper, which you've all seen them from the top management strategic consultancies, right? The multi-million-dollar PowerPoint decks, is as sophisticated as it looks. Nobody can tell until you actually start to enact it, put it in action, and constantly measure and revisit. So OKRs start to play in an important role. You have to have solid OKRs, not superficial ones, that actually start to act almost as leading indicators to your strategy. You need to have good competitive research and intelligence. You need to have good customer research. You need to have various methods for market sensing from your customer voice of customer interactions and various different ways. So I think I don't have an answer to tell you this is a good strategy or a bad strategy, and I would even conjecture nobody can. You try your best to make it as comprehensive as possible based on current data as you know it today, but then start measuring, start enacting and start measuring, because who knows? It's when I was in my graduate program and the topic of game theory came up, it was quite interesting because there's so many different factors that can impact so many different things that your ultimate outcome becomes highly unpredictable. It's not just what you do, what you build, what your customer says. It's the interaction of the competitors, how they're going to respond. It's the interaction of your partner channel. It's the interaction of the economy. I mean, it becomes really, really hard. So I don't know. I hope that's not a cop-out answer.
No,
What do you
it isn't. It's a very, very good answer. You're saying the system is so complex that the only reasonable solution is extremely rapid feedback and adjustment.
Yes.
I agree.
That's very, thank you for stating it. That's actually much, much more eloquent than what I said.
Well, you did it fine. Thank you.
Quite welcome.
And then Tom, just me reflecting on your question, I think you would also agree that I mean, the more detailed answer to what you're asking would come as part of the strategy process of really understanding what those targets are and consumption on the critical resources. So not something you would start with, but something that would materialize as a result of you understanding the situation better.
Yep.
Yeah, very well.
It's a mixture of both. You had a good answer because you have some idea of the OKRs that are necessary there, but you don't trust them because they're so complex. And the only answer to that is rapid feedback and adjustment. I agree.
Yes. And interestingly, we have a situation of strategy misalignment even in this call, because I want people to raise their hand and ask you questions directly, Deema. People seem to want me to read the questions from the direct chat. But I can do that, but I wanted to offer you a chance, Maru, first to speak up and share your question. Would that be okay? And then Maru,
I had a question for you, Morten. It was about really when
Maru was first. Sorry, Sherry, but you cannot see this because it was a private chat. But Maru, do you want to ask your question?
Yeah, I'm happy to. Thanks for the opportunity. Just to make it possible to be as closely aligned with your mental model of what you're talking about possible. I just would like to understand, in the context of this work that you're doing or this presentation, what is your working definition of strategy?
So I see the reason I broke up business strategy from the different functional ones is I think they serve different purposes. I think the business strategy that defines what you are, who are the customers you're targeting with your distinctive competence, and what is it that you're there as an organization to solve. So everybody's heard the IKEA example, their basic business strategy of IKEA. It's quite brilliant. That's why it's withstood the test of time. Basically, they provide modern, affordable furniture designs by having a distinctive competence of the shipping collapsible containers of that furniture. So their whole supply chain is built to support that distinctive competence, which makes it hard to emulate, right? Somebody else would want to get into that type of space, but they'd have to invest heavily to do that. So that's their business strategy. Then they may have tweaks to it over time. But then you flow it down to each of the departments, the products that are developed. And I work in a digital world, so it's mostly software products, right? The systems. What is that product strategy that's going to support our business strategy and where we're heading? right? What is the go-to-market, the combination, the congruence of my revenue organization and brand marketing that work together to support the strategy, right? Financial strategy is going to be different. How do you support and finance all of that? So to me, the functional strategies are more about how do I not execute, but basically how do I accomplish, how do I achieve our business strategy with the latest business strategic goals based on what we're sensing.
Okay, so okay, Martin, I'm only gonna step one follow-up question because we only have 40 minutes. Just the sense of my question is just to understand what is in it. What is this strategy? Not what it does or if it's a competitive advantage or how it's used, but how does it look like? What's inside? What do you work with? What's the artifact? This strategy thing.
So,
if possible.
Yeah. I've actually seen some of the prior meetups that presented some really good examples from canvases. Did Carl speak yet about his X matrix, where he articulates, right? Yeah. This is not my area of expertise, but I've seen it in multiple forms. Here's what I've seen. I've seen the PowerPoint deck that articulates who we are and our competitive advantage and what we're targeting. I've seen business model canvas and similar ones. So I'm not sure I'm the most qualified person to actually get you there because I don't work in strategy formulation. I'm the consumer of strategy, and I'm the one that connects it to execution.
Yeah, okay, it's all fine. I mean, I have my own working definition of strategy, and I know I worked in it for 10 years. I was interested in yours. So when you use it as an input for your portfolio management, you must know how something looks like so that you can work with it. But it's fine. It's okay. We can I'm going to add you on LinkedIn, and maybe we can carry the discussion over there. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'd love to see some of your examples and learn from you because again, it's important to understand where we have experience and where we don't. And I'm not gonna claim a different positioning than what I have. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sharifa?
Yeah, my question was, when do you evaluate whether your strategy is good or failed you?
Right now, it needs to be continuously. It needs to be continuously. Now, in reality, you cannot possibly have it on a daily basis. However, you need to have the key performance indicators for each of your value streams, the strategic OKRs, the key results of those. You want to at least look at them once a quarter as a leadership team. But at the same time, which is something that I instituted in my last role, is you want to put in place the data visualization to derive these insights on a continuous basis. So you never want the leadership team to wait for the quarterly meeting to see what's happening. You want the dashboards and the data available and ready so that at any point in time you can go and see them and sense. You also want to have other market sensing things in place. You want to have voice of customer, partner channel interactions on a continuous basis and funnel that into these strategy performance, basically, portfolio performance conversations. So you want to be looking 360 holistically at everything happening on a continuous basis and bring that in to really try to make sense of what is happening around us. It took me a couple of months of research to start sounding the alarm in that older story about the market shift. You can see it in the data. You can see it, but once those light bulbs connected, I put in place dashboards and even a model to start to predict what's happening. And the model started to show like, yeah, validated, this is actually happening. So.
Good answer, Deema. And I just wanted to add from what Tom said, I think feedback loop is very important as well. So keep really having that feedback loop is very important because it helps you make the shift when it is needed in a way.
Absolutely right, Sharifa.
Deema, I have a question which is a bit more contextual. And I just want to make it relatively simple. And this is me asking, so of course, I don't know how you see it. But if you look at the agile landscape, I mean, you can build an easy argument that Scrum has been winning the team space. It's the thing that everybody knows and everybody talks about. You don't need to like it or not, but it has a huge presence of mind in that space. And I think it's not unfair to say that the scaled agile framework has done the similar thing for how you then scale teams to cover something larger. Of course, there are competitors, but in terms of share of mind, etc., there's a clear dominance. And what we talk about now, the portfolio level, is almost like the last element of making that scaling of team really work and cross over into the organization. So no particular framework implied, but with the history you are having, how do you see the industry doing on what you could call portfolio management? I mean, can we say that we have somehow solved this problem, or is it more that the industry is still looking for even like how do you get the right grip of this slippery thing we call portfolio management? And again, I'm loading the question, so feel free to apply your own skill. I'm just wondering, where do you see us being in terms of like, can we say that this is solved and now we are just waiting for the sinners to come to church, or are we still building the church and the sinners don't really know where to go? All of that.
I think I don't know about sinners, but I think portfolio management, there's been some. I mean, we stand on the shoulders of giants, and I saw BRT presented a few weeks ago, and then within Scaled Agile, we work to coin and start to put some structure around what became named Lean Portfolio Management. But I think we just barely cracked open the door. I think there's a huge opportunity to further elaborate this world of portfolio management. I mean, we haven't we mentioned governance, we haven't even touched it. The funding of persistent value streams, we say it should happen, but there's so much nuance and implications in there on capitalization and other things that there is a lot of opportunity to evolve the domain of portfolio management, especially in a lean adaptive way. Yeah, plenty of opportunity. I think if anybody wants to pair, I'm always game to work on it with you guys. And I would also encourage you, do what I did, step into the role of actually leading the portfolio operations. You're going to find that whatever is academic and in the textbook only covers this much. In reality, it's far more complex. So step into the role, feel my pain, and then we'll talk about it. Let's evolve it together.
Well, I have some battle scars myself. So in the absence of no raised hands, one more question, because there's something that's always puzzled me. I was one of the first from the outside to pick up on lean portfolio management back in 2019, I believe, when it was released.
Summer, yes.
And I was really intrigued by this idea of participatory budgeting. Mm-hmm. And then the actual clients and employments I came across, that was never really a problem. I mean, what manifested itself, and I totally appreciate that my view might be biased, but it was a bit like short term, the people were there, right? So the money you had to invest were sitting there eating pizza and drinking coffee, sort of personal preferences and allergies permitting. But those were the people, and it was really more of a question of how to best utilize the capacity you already had invested in than it was a matter of how much it was, meaning that you basically, in the places where I were, which were large technology companies, you basically had like a fixed capacity, money already spent situation. So the conversation of budgeting at most became a priority conversation of what you would like people to work on. It never really became the let's play Monopoly with the money and put them where we think they should be. And it's just something that puzzles me. I don't know if you have experiences of where this really made a difference, or if you somehow can share my observation.
So participatory budgeting was introduced when Luke Homan, shout out to him, and Innovation Games, he brought in this technique. It was actually built on his game by a feature, and it was introduced as a fun, collaborative way to get the leadership team to start to align. How it played out in the market, I think you're right. It proved it was a good conversation starter. I used to play it with the leadership team early on in LPM adoption to get them to start to realize different components, how they start to connect. However, I haven't seen the case where it persists and becomes institutionalized as part of the portfolio operation because it was missing so many pieces. So when I tinkered with that product co-fund, we tried to bring in a little bit of the horizons and the balance of allocations into the conversation, but still the technique itself wasn't quite sufficient. So I think leaders and transformation change agents need to work together to figure out what's a good approach for their company to continuously look at the different priorities and elements to figure out what they're going to be in aggregate betting on next. I think that's my best advice. Don't give up on participatory budgeting, but I haven't seen it played out as an institutional. It hasn't crossed the chasm. Let's call it that way.
I heard that's even is that the Texan saying never back down, never give up. I think I heard that before.
Hey, it's an experiment, right? You never innovate and move forward if you don't run experiments. So this was a really good experiment.
Exactly. We are approaching the top of the hour. If anyone has a last question, we might have time. But I also wanted to ask you, Deema, is there anything we can do for you? You already asked us some questions, but is there anything else where we can be helpful?
I will continue to attend. I'm learning a lot from all the other colleagues. And please feel free to connect with me directly. I'd love to continue the conversation, learn from all of you. That's another thing when you shift from consultant to actual practitioner, you gain an immediate humility to realize, no, you don't know all the answers.
Yeah, and actually before we started the open part of the call, we already agreed to have a connect. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Me too. Thank you for having me. This was fun.
Well, thank you for joining. So thank you everybody for joining, and see you all next time. So let's end it here. Thank you.
Thank
you,
you.
Deema. Thank you, Morten.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.